not human. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken. Eyes gouged from bloody sockets. Flesh burned black. Please. No way to death. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has laid down.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, November 26th, 2007.
Welcome one, welcome all to World of the Unexplained, the show that makes you go, tonight I'm here with Chuck.
Arsenio Hall.
Okay.
Was that what the reference was?
No, it wasn't. It was
No.
just
I got you.
I haven't seen that show in years. I was a small child and stupid when I watched that again. Anyway, I'm here tonight with Chuck Browder,
What's up?
the co-host of Third Rail Radio.
That's right.
That's right.
Dropping science at you at 64,000 kilobytes a second.
That's right. So be sure to check that out this Wednesday night from 8 to 10 Eastern on OmniSound Radio 1. You can also check it out, our site, www.thirdrailradio.com. And you can check into the new stuff there going on. Anyway, so tonight we have guest Michael Renegar. He wrote a book called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Roadside Revenants, I believe is the proper way to pronounce that. But he's a North Carolina boy, and since he is a North Carolina native, like most of the crew here, he's Chuck's not a bad guy. He's from Tennessee. D, are you originally from here? Yes, sir. Okay, I thought you were. All right, so everybody here is a North Carolina native except old Chuck. He's from Tennessee. Close enough.
I got my cred though since '88, man. So
yeah,
it's been a while.
It's all good, man. It's close. It's bordering state. So you're all good with us.
At least I'm not from Oklahoma.
That's right.
No offense to anyone from Oklahoma out there.
Like our guest tonight. No, I'm kidding. So, but yeah, this is Mr. Clements found us some interesting news here. Apparently, let me see. The baby Jesus in Chicago is not leaving its manger this year. Volunteers are bolting down the baby Jesus in the nativity scene in Chicago's Daily Plaza to keep it from being stolen. Apparently in 1999, someone stole the life-size figure and stashed it in a Union Station locker where it was later found after an anonymous tip. A 19-year-old art student was the next one to try to make off with it. He got caught a couple blocks down the road, though. That didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
So this year, they're securing it by a cable wrapped around its waist and bolted into the manger floor. Apparently, this has not been the only one to be targeted for pilfering. These incidents are becoming increasingly common, the Chicago Tribune says. Last year, for example, 32 baby Jesus figures were stolen from Chicagoans' yards and turned up on one woman's front lawn. That's just weird. Who wants to steal a baby Jesus figurine, man? What gives?
It's just got to be a holiday, prank. I mean, I can't think of any feasible reason to have one of those lying around.
Magical powers, Chuck.
What about stealing?
Plain and simple.
What about stealing Santa Claus, though? I mean,
also magical powers, Scott.
Okay,
clearly. I mean, everybody knows that effigies of the baby Jesus and Santa Claus have magical powers.
Apparently, yeah.
I don't know what kind of magical powers, but
What you got, Trent?
Take that, Menorah. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. They have magical powers too. Weird news from around the world. This just in.
I need to get that sound effect. Like the guy, the local news guy. Well, he's not really local. Out of
Is that an ABC thing that because that's always been one of my favorite ones.
No, it's the one I'm thinking of. There's a guy, I can't remember his name. He does a thing out of Burlington, North Carolina, where he pretends to be Dan Rather in the morning. So he'll be like, he'll be reading the news, and it's all like real news that he's cranked up to be real bogus. You know what I mean?
That's a 92.3 thing. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's on 101.
Okay.
And the guy's like, it's really funny because the guy's like, he's like, Dan Rather, courage. I mean, he says that after each one. It's like, courage. But he's got the voice down so much you'd almost think you were listening to Dan Rather. It's hilarious.
This is John Boy and Billy. Then is that?
No. This is just it's one of the local guys in the studio. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, Trent, go ahead.
Well, who knew that cow ear hair was so useful? This is from Berlin. The German government wasted some 1.9 billion euros, 1.4 billion pounds last year on everything from defective brushes made of cow's ear hair. You heard me right, cow's ear hair, to new seats for army trucks that are not roadworthy, auditors said on Thursday. The examples were cited in the Federal Audit Office's 2007 annual review of government spending, which found a lack of oversight in 85% of 40,000 cases investigated. These were very troubling findings, Audit Office President Dieter Engels said in a statement. I wonder if he's related to Dieter from Sprockets. Dieter. You know what I'm saying? You remember Sprockets. Yes.
Or I was thinking Mark's Engels, man.
He's related to both of them, Dieter and Frederick Engels. The review showed that the government dealings with the national rail operator Deutsche Bahn. We've ridden the Deutsche Bahn. Scott and I have actually.
Yeah, have we?
It's a very Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a very efficient train service. Except that guy told me to take my feet off the seats.
Oh, I remember that now.
Is this correct?
Is this correct?
Yeah, I didn't know what he was talking about.
Like what? He's pointing at your feet.
Just being a rude American, I guess.
We
I wasn't trying
20
to.
years old, man. 20 years old.
I wasn't trying to be, but
it was 11 years ago.
Anyway, Deutsche Bahn had cost the taxpayer 190 million euros, most of it money Berlin paid the firm for a stretch of track that was never built. Oh, really? So where did it go? I mean, nobody ever went out there and looked,
It happens, man.
Germany also spends millions renting computers for more than it would cost to buy them. Pays twice as many staff as it needs to look after police uniforms.
To look after police uniforms.
Look after police uniforms.
So you just have a room of police uniforms.
Yeah, you have a job where a guy just stands there and
what
goes
a cool job, man.
Yep.
It's like, what do you do? Oh,
yep, they're still here.
Look after the police uniforms.
Maybe brush them.
Play crosswords.
Yeah. Make sure they're not animated with malevolent spirits, I guess. And maintains an underground air surveillance bunker that serves no military purpose. Oh, an underground air surveillance bunker. That makes sense. Yeah. You're surveilling the air.
Like what our show used to be broadcast out of.
Yeah. Shh, we can't tell people that.
The underground bunker here at so-and-so Air Force Base.
Actually, well, that's another story, totally unrelated, about bunkers that's here near Kernersville, and Scott knows what I'm talking about.
That's right, I do.
Germany's army, the Bundeswehr, I hope I said that right, spent 1 million euros on special brushes made from the inner ear hair of South American cattle.
€1 million for inner ear hair brushes from cattle.
From South American cattle.
Must be pretty fine hair that.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I mean,
I wonder what my nose hair could go for on eBay.
It's too coarse.
Anyway, but check this out. I mean, the inner ear hair of South American cattle to clear a dirty protection screen. Not only are they using this brush made of South American inner ear hair from cows, they're using it to clean a dirty projection screen, which had disabled a 16 million euro combat simulation center. I mean, honestly. Can they just use a wet paper towel?
You need the right tool for the right job, my friend.
I guess so.
I can understand that.
But the brushes could not remove the flecks left on the screen by weapon systems, the report said. The center had gone unused since 2004. The maintenance cost 1.5 million euros a year. So it's closed down.
They can send some of that over here if they want it. Send it to Wotu.
Yeah, once again.
PO Box 194, Kernersville, North Carolina, 27285.
Right, we have a
0194.
unused radio station. That needs watching over.
That's right. Just send your 0.5 million euros here. We'll take care of it.
Anyway, the maintenance cost 1.5 million euros a year because lasers used in simulations could ignite the dirty screen. Really.
Wow.
The Army has suggested building a €2.4 million mudroom to clean the weapons before simulations. Doesn't even explain what a mudroom is. I guess it's a room full of mud.
It's a military thing, man.
I guess so. Wink, wink. But still had not worked out how to clean the screen, the auditors said. The patent office spent €8 million over 3 years to rent computers it could have bought for €1 million less. Everybody knows that. Everybody. We know that, Chuck. I'm sorry, I just dropped it.
It's all good, man. I think, though, that the mud room is actually like a decon area so that they can, get all the muddy stuff that they have on them off before they enter the other room that contaminate the projector screen.
That makes sense.
One more thing. The Army developed new seats for elderly personnel transporters that should be kept off the road. Even with the new seats in the trucks are so unsafe, they can't be used to transport people on public roads, the auditor's report said. So apparently, the United States is not the only government in the world that blows money on ridiculously, pointlessly, stupid, inefficient, and idiotic things.
Well, I've got one before our guest comes on here. I like this one. This is good. Student driver abandoned during test. Apparently this happened in Reading or Reading, England. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. But
Reading.
Is it Reading?
Yeah.
It sounds better that way. A student driver in England says she was abandoned during her driving test by the examiner, who just, quote, wandered off. Faye Rivers, 17 years old, said the examiner left after a problem with the handbrake on the car she was driving. Apparently, she was trying to start the engine on a hill, and the handbrake failed, so she had to keep her foot on the brake pedal. And the examiner actually got out of the car, left, and went to call for help.
Oh, well, he called for help.
Just hang on right there. Just keep your foot on the brake.
It's getting dark pretty soon. You just hold on there. Don't worry about the werewolves.
Quote, but he came back and said he couldn't get through. Then he said there was nothing else he could do and told me to phone my driving instructor to come and get me before walking off. Quote, I didn't know what to do, and for all I knew, the car was about to blow up, but he just wandered off. Quote, I was so angry, it took 20 minutes for my instructor to find me. I was pressing the brake pedal so hard with my foot, it went numb. So,
you think you could have found some chalks or something, man, to stick under those wheels?
Yeah.
or like turn around and go back down the hill.
Or even just take your foot off the brake and just coast it down
man.
the hill
Coast
till
it,
it's
just tap the
somewhere
brake.
on
I got a better idea. Take your foot off the brake, coast it down the hill, open up the door, and jump out. Roll out, action hero style.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, my gosh.
You love that natural reverb with that coil,
I do.
don't you?
I liked it.
What was that?
Enjoyed it.
I can't do that.
I know you
It's
can't.
the coil over
Yeah,
here.
it's the coil, man.
It sort
You
of
can't
makes
do
a
that
cheap
with yours.
artificial reverb. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at that.
I want a coil on
can't-
my
you can't have
speaker.
one.
You really don't.
Yeah,
I want one.
it's really a pain.
We can have a, it'll be part of my new wave act. Scott was to sit
Oh,
there and
man.
he'll be the percussionist, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, we've got our guest.
Thanks, Dean.
Michael Renegar, author of Roadside Revenants. I hope I'm pronouncing
Revenants?
that right. Revenants. Michael, you with us?
Yes,
Am I pronouncing that right?
it's Roadside Revenants.
I thought it would be
Revenants. Okay, my bad.
like spirits that come.
Yeah, I
revenants.
know what it means. I just didn't know how to pronounce it. I got my N and V.
Just like
Yeah, whatever. So, you're a North Carolina native, right, Michael?
That's right.
Born and raised right here in the good old Tar Heel State.
Yes, in East Bend, North Carolina.
East Bend. Oh, I've been through that town quite a number of times, actually.
Really?
I sure have.
Now,
Bet you missed it a few times when you blinked.
I did. There's a really neat old watermill up that way.
Yes.
I discovered. It was very interesting, but.
Now, we talked a little earlier this week about some of the work you've done on the Lydia Bridge incident in Jamestown, North Carolina.
Yes, the story on High Point Road down there in Jamestown. Lydia was supposedly a young lady who was killed in a car wreck there at the old underpass on High Point Road in 1923. And it's the classic vanishing hitchhiker story. Supposedly people will come along and see her standing there on the side of the road, pick her up, and she has to be taken to her home in High Point. And, of course, when they get her to the address that she gives them, she's never there.
Creepy.
That's a classic.
Now, I believe the original story, or at least the one that I've heard, maybe many times overtold, was the fact that she was coming back from a dance.
Yes, I think the dance was in Raleigh. Okay. I'm not sure if it was a prom or if they had proms in 1923. There was a dance that she and her boyfriend had attended. I'm not sure if the boyfriend was killed or not. I think it was a head-on collision. I've talked to several people who were alive in 1923. They were very young, of course, who actually remembered an accident at the old underpass which did kill a young lady, but they weren't sure if the young lady's name was Lydia or not. The names I got ranged from Olivia to Lydia to Mary to Laura. So I'm not sure what the young lady who actually died, I'm not sure what her name was.
But as of yet, you can't really put a finger on who the woman was, where she may have lived, or her parents may have lived, and whether or not this is just truly an urban legend or an actual factual kind of event.
Most things that you see and hear lead you to believe that this was probably just an urban legend that grew around that accident, but I'm not willing to give up on it being a real story yet, because, like I said, I talked to people who remembered an accident that killed a young lady, and I've heard different people give me locations for where the house may have been that she lived. One is on Forest Street, and the other is on Woodrow Avenue in High Point.
That's interesting. That's interesting stuff.
That's pretty strange, really.
Now, what other streets and haunted places do you cover in North Carolina in your book, Roadside Revenants? Gosh,
there are 30 chapters in the book. The last chapter is a chapter on how to conduct an amateur ghost hunt if you want to try something like that. But my stories in the first book, Roadside Revenants, generally cover the western part of North Carolina from Greensboro to Boone.
Okay.
I have Tom Dooley in there. Charlie Lawson is in there. I have stories from Yadkin County about the Hunt House in Courtney, which is Yadkin County's most famous haunted house. Stories from the Appalachian State campus.
Do you?
Wow, I mean, so many. I want to talk about them all.
I do too. Did you ever document Payne Road by any chance in Winston-Salem?
Stokes.
It might be in Stokes for some.
I've actually heard several stories about Payne Road. A lot of times, people get mixed up Payne Road and the Charlie Lawson stories. I don't know how many people I've had tell me that Charlie Lawson killed his family on Christmas Day out there on Payne Road, and that is simply not the truth.
Yeah, I've heard that one too.
Okay.
And it's kind of in the area I've heard, but
I think it's within 7 or 8 miles. It's not very far.
Right.
The same creek, Town Fork Creek, actually runs through both properties, and I think maybe that connection there, tenuous as it is where people transplant Charlie Lawson to Payne Road.
Okay.
I've only been able to document 2 specific deaths on Payne Road. One was, of course, the young lady who was murdered out there in 1992 and tied to the tree. Supposedly she's one of the ghosts that you see. The other is a man who took a stick of dynamite, stuck it in his mouth, and blew himself up several years ago, and he is a member of the family that actually owns that property.
I haven't heard either one of these stories.
Yeah. I just heard. I don't remember what I heard actually. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Well, Al, I think
they were
when
talking.
he was
Payne
here
Road
last time,
had also
told us about that the woman who had been abducted.
Okay.
And was essentially tortured out there.
Oh, yeah. Can you tell us the story about both of these people if you don't mind,
right,
Michael?
Well, I'm not sure on the details. I don't want to give anything away about my second book, which this story is in the second book.
Oh, is it?
I know that the young lady was taken out there, and she was tortured, and she was murdered. And I think she was supposed to have been tied to a tree there, close to the bridge that used to be there. It's no longer there. And I think supposedly you're supposed to see her ghost tied to the tree there.
Huh.
Well, that's creepy.
As far as the man who blew himself up, I think he probably, if my understanding is, he lived in that big house that used to be there that everyone talked about being haunted.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I know. We know exactly the one, right?
Now,
there were symbols, on the walls and stuff, and there were candles. People went in there and used to do crazy, silly things. They talked about satanic worship there. Of course, I don't know if that's so or not. A lot of things that people take as satanic symbols aren't. They just paint them because they look cool and make up stories about them.
Right. Now, most Satan worship, quote unquote, is a bunch of people sitting around, drinking beer and playing with
being kids.
Yeah, playing with Ouija boards or whatever.
Yes, but there is the main legend about Payne Road was that a man named Edward Payne once owned a plantation out there. The outbuildings are still standing there. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be a really cruel man, and he supposedly tortured and killed his slaves. Mm-hmm. Another story has his slaves ganging up and killing him. But I haven't been able to document whether he was a real person or if that's something that was made up to keep people away from that property or what have you. I do know that the place is really creepy, and it's very dark because there are no streetlights down through there. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you probably know it's no longer called Payne Road. They've changed the name because so many people were going out.
What is the name of the road now?
Yeah, I think it's called Edwards Road now.
Okay, well, good. We cleared that up.
So people want listen to quotes like
Edwards Road.
Scratch out Payne Road.
It used to, and maybe I went on the wrong road, but I remember years ago, I guess probably in '94, we used to ride, maybe '92 even. We used to ride around that road when we were in high school.
Yeah,
and it used to be, part of it used to not be paved.
It was gravel and very poorly.
The entire thing is paved now. It's off of 66, right as you cross the railroad tracks there in Rural Hall.
Okay.
It goes down through there, and it's paved now. The house is gone. The foundation is still there. And the bridges are no longer there. There used to be a story about the bridge. If you're on the bridge, it wouldn't start back.
That's the story I'm familiar
That's the one we were always...
Now, where was the bridge? Where was the bridge located at?
I haven't been down there when the bridge was standing.
Okay.
I've only been down there since they've paved the thing. I think it was near the very end where it runs into a road which is called Payne Road now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it'll confuse you because the road that is Payne Road is no longer called Payne Road, but there's a road called Payne Road which runs into 66 further down the road. It's really, I think they did that on purpose.
Probably to distract.
Keep the teenagers away.
Yeah, put them all on the wrong road, really.
Yeah.
But either way...
Now, is that a private road, or is that a...
It's a state-maintained road, I do believe, but it's not one of the main roads. It does connect to Highway 8 from 66. You go down through there, you can go over to Highway 8, and then, of course, go back down to Brook Cove Road where the Lawson killings were.
Yeah, that's very interesting, too. I mean, that region does seem to have a dark and sinister history, really. I mean, with what you're talking about, the lady being tortured, the man committing suicide in such a grisly way, and then the Lawson murders, by it. So.
I want to pop in something real quick, and then I'll let Trent jump on this Lawson murder thing or wherever either one of you guys want to go. But have you heard of any stories surrounding... any ghost stories surrounding any of the Michael Hayes killings that took place in the northern Davidson County / Forsyth County area?
I haven't personally heard any stories connected with that, but incidentally, I know some of the people who are involved with the documentary about Charlie Lawson. Okay. And one of the producers' mother went to show the movie at the Mordecai House in Raleigh. This past October, and she was there, and she happened to run into Michael Hayes and his family there.
Oh my gosh!
He was actually there to see the movie.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he ain't getting out.
He's been out on parole, actually.
Yeah, he's been working, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Some convenience store.
Limited releases. But it kind of frightened her. And there was an article in the Winston-Salem Journal a week or two later about him being seen there.
Oh, Lord.
But as far as any ghost stories, I haven't heard any.
Okay.
Maybe time will tell.
Well, tell us, I'm not familiar with the Lawson murders.
They made a book of it a long time ago, White Christmas, Bloody Christmas. Am I right about this?
Yes. Okay. There's been a more recent book called The Meaning of Our Tears, which actually incorporates that old book and adds some new details, and has a lot more pictures than the old one did. But I think the author's name is Trudy Smith, I think. But it's an interesting book. It really is. There's always controversy about things, and I won't get into the controversy with that. But Charlie Lawson was a Stokes County farmer who, on Christmas Day, 1929, killed several of his children and his wife, and then killed himself. Only one child survived, his son Arthur, who had gone into town that day, and he was sort of the protector of the family. Everyone talks about Charlie Lawson, and all his neighbors knew him as a really kind, good, decent human being. They rarely saw, the dark side of him, but he did. People said he had a temper, but no one really knows the reason that he killed his family that day. There are rumors, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about rumors because I don't know for sure. I did say something about one of them in my book, but no one really knows. But on Christmas Day, he wiped his whole family out.
That's definitely beyond the act of just simple anger.
Yeah.
Simple anger will cause you to, if you're in that mode, maybe kill one person. And then you'll sort of like, oh my gosh, what have I done? This is this kind of brutality and butchery is well beyond just simple emotions. I mean, it's almost just callous. Really, I guess would be the word I would use.
There were a few months before the murders, Charlie had been doing some farm work, and he was using a mattock to dig a drainage ditch.
Right.
And supposedly he hit himself in the head when the mattock struck something, and a lot of people think that maybe that damaged Charlie's brain and caused him to change. In fact, a lot of people say he was changed after that.
Well, I can understand why.
And for those people out there who don't know what a mattock is, it's a simple gardening tool. If I understand, it has like a long, flat axe-like end on one side,
like a pick on the end,
and then like perpendicular to that on the other side, it has like a flat hoe-like blade. It's like a double-bladed tool.
It's like a pick on one side.
Yeah, basically. I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, mattock.
But incidentally, though, when Charlie's brain was examined after the murders and everything, they didn't find any damage to it that would have come from such an accident. So,
I mean, this was in 1929. I'm sure the height of the medical advent wasn't really.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, if it had happened a couple of months ago, you would be able to find some kind of superficial wound or whatever where he had hit himself, even if it was a couple of months.
Yes. But like I said, there are several rumors. There are even rumors that someone besides Charlie killed the family, but everything I've ever found in all my research and all the research that anyone has really done into it indicate that Charlie is the one who did it, and that he then killed himself. He, in fact, had started to write a couple of suicide notes, which were just really cryptic. There are little one-line things where he started and didn't finish.
That's really strange.
Well, we're going to have to take a break right now, but if you'll hang tight with us, we'll be back with you. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Tonight our guest is Michael Renegar, and we'll be back here in just a bit.
This is World of the Unexplained. I'm Trent Lackey. Over there is Jason Scott. We are here tonight with Michael Renegar. Like you can really tell where I'm pointing, but he's over there. We're here with Michael Renegar, author of Roadside Revenants, a North Carolina native. And I believe you have a MySpace site. Is that correct?
Yes, it's Project Ghost Find. Our email, if you'd like that, is proghostfindadmin1. That's one big, long, huge word. proghostfindadmin1.
Is that admin 1 as an O-N-E or just the number 1?
It's the number 1.
Okay.
At gmail.com.
So pro ghost find.
Ghost find admin1.
Admin1 at
gmail.com.
And where can they find your book?
They can find it at Walden Books. In fact, I'll be at Walden Books in Haynes Mall on December 15th at 4 p.m. to sign books.
Hey, we should write that down and show up.
We should.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
Write it down now.
Available at Barnes & Noble. Most book retailers can order it for you if they don't have it in stock. I know that it was available at the ASU bookstore at one time. I don't know if they still have it or not.
Okay. Cool.
It's also available online with my publisher, Bright Mountain Books Incorporated, which they're really, really wonderful people.
Okay. Awesome.
Very, very cool. Guys, you got to pick up a copy. now. Let's see. Where shall I? Okay. I live in Davie County actually, and obviously,
out there.
yeah, I do live way out there. But let's talk a little bit about this this hunt house over in Yadkin County in Courtney. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. It's actually the Dalton Hunt House. It was built by the Dalton family on Farmington Road in the early 1800s. And every family that has lived in this house in the 19th century and the early 20th century has experienced some sort of tragedy. The Daltons, who lived there, had a small son named Paul, who was very sickly, and he died at a very young age. I think it was 8 or 9, maybe younger. But the lady who was his mother, I can't recall her name off the top of my head, I'm very sorry, but she started seeing her son around the property, and she would go walking about the property, walking through the woods, hollering out, "Paul, Paul, my son, Paul." And people would hear her out there looking for her dead son.
Sounds creepy already.
Well, one day, she was on the balcony of the house, and we don't know why, whether she saw her son's ghost in the yard or what, but she either fell or jumped from that balcony and landed on a cow prod or not a prod, but a cow stall in the front yard.
Oh.
Used to tie pregnant cows. Fell on this, was impaled, and died instantly. And from that time on, people would say that they would hear her in the woods calling for her son, or they would see her on the balcony or see her walking about there. Well, a few years later, the property was bought by Dr. Leander Hunt, and he moved there with his wife Molly and his daughter Daisy. Well, he raised Daisy there in that house, and Dr. Hunt died, and Daisy and her mother didn't really get along very well, and Daisy started dating one of the hired hands. His name was Will Kelly. Her mother didn't approve of this at all. She did everything she could to keep them apart. But you know how young lovers are. They find a way.
Oh, yeah.
And Daisy became pregnant by Will Kelly. And, of course, this outraged her mother and her uncle one winter day lay in wait for Will Kelly and shot him to death on the property. And the legend is that it was so cold that day that when the sheriff came to get his body, they had to pry his body from the ground with a shovel because it had frozen to the ground.
Oh, man.
Gosh.
And the stories were that Daisy saw this happen. No court cases ever came up over it. No one was ever tried for Will Kelly's murder. But Daisy supposedly saw this happen. And in 1902, she gave birth to the baby, whose name was Jack Hunt. The baby, according to legend, was scarred by what his mother saw that day and was born without any sweat glands. And so his skin looked like fish glands, like fish scales. People called him Fish Boy, and when he grew up, Fish Man. And they taught Jack well, and he was really polite, and you could tell he came from landed gentry, but in later years, things got to him. He actually was accused of killing a couple of people and setting fires and things, but he was never
formally
nothing
charged.
really happened over it. But once Jack died, people started to say they would see him lingering about in the woods around the house. People would say they would, on the anniversary of Will Kelly's murder, would say that they would hear a scream and they would hear gunshots. Orbs have been seen over there. There are power lines all around that house. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but there are power lines everywhere, but no power lines connect to that house. There's no juice going to it. Yet some nights, if you're out there, you can see the lights come on and go off in that house. I've seen that myself.
You've seen that yourself?
I've seen that with myself. In fact, I had a group there last month, and there was once where it seemed the lights came on out there. But incidentally, I talked to you about Jack Hunt's disability, being born without sweat glands. As it turns out, Will Kelly was an illegitimate son of Dr. Hunt, so he and Daisy were half-brother and sister.
Oh, my gosh.
the reason her...
Welcome to North Carolina.
Oh, Scott, come on now. All right, Scott.
Hey, I'm from here. I can say that.
To this day, the house is supposed to be haunted. And, you know, a lady that owns it now, she said she never had anything happen there. And there was a caretaker used to live in a trailer by it. He never saw anything.
Mm-hmm. Is there power to the house?
Not to the house. Like I said, no lines go to the house. There are lines to that trailer, but not to the house.
And now, is this in Courtney?
It's in in the Courtney Huntsville area.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
The property is posted though, so I wouldn't go roaming around.
Yeah, traipsing around. But you can drive by and look at it. It's like, yep, it's haunted.
Yeah. And when you drive by it, you'll have no doubt which house it is, because as you're driving towards it, it just looks kind of warped, and almost like there's some kind of time warp around it. It just doesn't look like it belongs.
Huh.
And I mean, it's a wonderful house. I wish I owned it. If I owned it and had millions of dollars, I'd restore it. But it's falling further and further into disrepair.
Yeah,
That's sad.
It really is the tragedy of our state, I think. You know, just the number of those amazing, old, beautiful houses
that have fell,
just disintegrating out of neglect and I guess the inability to fund an operation to repair.
Oh, come on, man. You know, you're more interested in playing their Xbox games.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You're from Davie County. Have you ever heard the Red Room story?
This sounds familiar.
The Red Room. Yeah, it does sound familiar. Actually, I'm from Davidson County originally, but no, I haven't heard about the Red Room story.
It's in my first book, Roadside Revenants, and I actually misplaced it in that book because somebody told me the wrong location, but I found it since then, and hopefully in the next printing of the book it'll be corrected.
Okay.
But it's in eastern Davie County, and it's off down an old dirt road by an old wooden church. The church itself is supposed to be haunted. That's a totally different story. But as you go around the last curve on that dirt road down there, there's a pet cemetery down there, and there's this big old 2-story house. And supposedly, a man killed his family in the front room of this house, and he went mad. No one knows whatever happened to him. Some say he was executed for it. Some say he was put away in a hospital. Some say he just left. But supposedly, if you go down there to this house and park your car with the headlights pointed into that room, the room will start glowing red, the color of blood.
Have you done this
now,
yourself?
Is this okay, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, have you done this with your car? Have you done this personally?
No, but I have a friend who took some people down there, and he said that it worked. They actually went into the house.
Oh, that's smart.
And they went in there, and they said that when they shined their lights on the wall, sure enough, it started turning the color of like scarlet, and said it even looked kind of wet and sticky, and they heard something, they got out of there, and that story's in the book. I'll let people read that, but that was, he the way he told the story, I believe he saw something. I mean, you never know what, who knows what if they were drinking. He said they weren't, but
Yeah, well,
never know around here.
It's possible.
I want to give the numbers real quick.
Yeah, that's true.
If you guys want to call in and speak with Michael, you can call us right here locally, 336-996-1596, or toll free anywhere in the United States and Canada at 1-877-722-7382. That number again is 1-877-SCARE-U2. And you can speak with, isn't that cool? You can speak with Michael Renegar. We did that on purpose.
Totally intentional.
That took some time.
Yeah.
Earlier, we were talking about Charlie Lawson. I wanted to tell you something kind of eerie that happened to a friend of mine.
Okay, sure.
The property's off limits now. The house is long gone. It was torn down in the 80s. And part of it was used to build a covered bridge on the property, which the bloodstains are still visible there. But the property's off limits. People bought it from out of state, and they have posted the property. They're actually building a fence around it because they had so many people coming out there. But this summer, my friend Amy Speece and I went up there to the Browder Cemetery where the Lawsons are buried in a mass grave there. And it's a really kind of lonely place, but it's very peaceful too. But we were walking around out there, and she's sort of sensitive. I'm not going to say she's a psychic because I kind of take a dim view of people who call themselves psychics.
So do we. It's okay.
But I believe some people are sensitive to things. But we were walking around out there, and this, I will never forget this. I was standing by the gravestone, and I had just made some offhand comment about Charlie Lawson, and if Charlie Lawson was around to give us a sign. Well, Amy was standing by a tree at the foot of the graves, and I heard this distinctly. I heard footfalls, and neither one of us was moving. And it sounded like behind her. And I looked at her, and she just kind of looked kind of funny. She heard it too. And I said, Amy, come here. And she said, I can't move. But it sounded like somebody walked right up behind her. And I went over there to where she was at and kind of moved her aside. In that one little area, it was really, really cold. Now, this is a summer day. I guarantee you it was every bit of 85 degrees out there. But that one spot where I moved her aside, it felt at least 15 to 20 degrees colder than it was around us. And incident that day, I caught an orb with my digital camera, and it's a heart-shaped thing. You can actually see it on the MySpace page if you go there. It's in the pictures. But that rain, that's something that will stick with me for, because it sounded like somebody walked up behind her. I heard that with my own ears, and there was nothing there. There was nobody else out there. I don't know what made that noise if something didn't walk up behind her.
Now, how do you're a faith-based man, you're a Christian from what we've talked about earlier, and I know you're friends with Dr. Al Prophet, who we've had on the show numerous times. How do you put these two together?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. The Bible says there's a Holy Ghost, and it says there are spirits out there. There are angels, there are demons, and I think maybe perhaps there are such things as ghosts. Whatever you want to call them, there's something out there. And to tell you the truth, the very first ghost story I ever remember hearing is in the Bible.
Okay.
It's in the Old Testament when King Saul, the witch of Endor,
summoned Samuel.
Yes, asked him to call up Samuel. And the witch, a lot of people say that it was one of these, sort of like these fake mediums today that have like somebody come out like a ghost. But in the story, it says that she conjured up Samuel's spirit, and Saul recognized him, and he asked him about the coming battle, if he would be killed, and Samuel's ghost tells him, as I am, so shall you be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And as we know from history, King Saul was killed.
That's interesting.
A lot of people, some ministers tell you that you can't be a Christian and believe in ghosts, and I just say that's nonsense, because that story is in the Bible, and I believe the Bible is the truth. I believe it's the Word of God, and if it's there,
Yeah, and also the thing about it was, it wasn't a demon, it wasn't some kind of trickster spirit, it was actually legitimately the ghost of Samuel in the Bible. He wasn't trying to be, fool anybody. It's like, first, but the witch apparently, if I remember correctly, at least in the King James, she's referred to as having a familiar spirit.
Yes.
And that always kind of befuddled me a little bit. It was like the ability to have a familiar spirit allowed her to summon up the dead or whatever.
There are stories of witches and all sorts of things. I think that if you have faith and you believe in spirits, you should at least be open to the idea of a ghost, or who knows what a ghost is. Is it a spirit of a dead person? Some people think so. But I'm sure someday science will be able to show us different things. But like I told you earlier, I'm a person of faith who is willing to use science to investigate these things, because I think science has its tools, has its uses. I don't say that if you believe in God, you can't believe in science too.
Yeah, that'd be very foolish, I think. Yeah, it's...
normally, I try to take a scientific approach when I actually go and do an investigation. I don't have high-tech equipment. Sometimes I'm able to borrow things, but you have to investigate things. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You can't come at it like wide-eyed and, there's got to be a ghost here. What you have to do is you have to look at everything. You have to see the history of the place. you have to look and see if there are anything that can have a natural cause, like a tree bumping against a house or water running somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look for natural causes first. And once you've ruled out natural causes, then you have to wonder if there's something supernatural going on. I believe that 80% of all ghost stories can be explained by natural causes or by stories being made up to keep people from a particular place. Like maybe somebody has a whiskey still that they wanted hidden, or
say it's haunted.
Safe.
Keep them away.
And then I think probably another 15% are out-and-out hoaxes, just people making things up, people trying to scare people.
Oh, yeah.
But there's that 5% that I think something really does happen that you can't explain.
It's really something else. And for your book, Roadside Revenants,
yes.
Those cases that you have in the book, how did you go about conducting the research? I mean, what was your plan for writing the story?
When I set out collecting the stories, I started thinking about oral traditions. People used to tell stories and things, and I like to sit down and listen to older people talk. A lot of people, they don't pay much attention to the elderly, and I think that's very sad because they could learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I just realized all these stories were going to be lost if somebody didn't record them.
Well, we thought about you. We thought about you. Trent and I did when I first talked to you and mentioned you to Trent a while back. I think we talked a couple of months ago. We compared you to I can't remember the guy's name now. The Twin Lakes Lodge.
John Harden.
Thank you.
Yes, Tar Heel Ghost and all that.
Yeah, that's because you just don't see books like that come out anymore.
It's really sad that so many stories get lost, but was my original purpose, was just to collect the stories
and preserve them, right?
And preserve them for future generations.
I think that's very important.
But I started looking into the things too, and my fascination just grew with it. And the reason I called the book Roadside Revenants is because I noticed as I was doing the research that so many stories I found took place alongside roads or trails or byways, and it just seemed to be a fitting title. And of course, the most famous story in there is Lydia, which they pick her up on the side of the road. And there's another story about a great uncle of mine. His name was Albert. They said he was walking down the road one day up in the Lone Hickory community, the old coach road, and they said he was walking along on his way home, and he just felt like he was being watched. So he looked up, and there in the trees stood something. It was dark, so he couldn't really see what it was, but he said it had two glowing yellow eyes, and it had to be at least 7 feet tall.
Oh, my gosh.
Just standing there.
Mothman. No.
Yeah.
Well, Albert carried a revolver.
Oh.
And he pulled out his revolver, and he unloaded it into this thing. Bam, bam, bam. Said, didn't even blink, didn't even move, just completely unconcerned, just been shot.
Wonderful.
And he said, well, how about that? And took off running.
That's an odd thing to say, a 7-foot-tall, yellow-eyed creature up in the treetops that you unloaded your gun into. Yeah.
Well, like I said in the book, a lot of people said that he consulted spirits of a different kind, if you know what I mean.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's always a possibility, when you talk about ghost stories.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour. We're going to be taking our second break of the night.
Okay.
So, do you have give me that website, the MySpace website again, Michael.
Okay, it's Project Ghost Find on MySpace, and our email is proghostfindadmin1, the number one, @gmail.com.
All right, great. So we'll be back here with Michael Renegar. Give us a call at 1-877-722-7382 or locally 336-996-1596. All right,
that's right, 877-SCARE-U2. That's toll free anywhere in the U.S. and Canada. Hit option 2, I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Option 2, it'll take you right into the show. And Mr. James D. Clements will answer the phone and get you patched right
The one
in.
and only.
That's right. So, like I said, guys, give us a call. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Our guest tonight is Michael Renegar, author of Roadside Revenants, and we'll be back here in just a moment. And welcome back to World of the Unexplained. We've got Michael Renegar tonight. He's going to be at Walden Books in Haynes Mall on December 15th at 4 o'clock. So if you guys can make it out there, that'd be kind of cool. You can meet Michael, buy a copy of his book, get it signed, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Author of Roadside Revenants. Gosh, Mike, did I say it right?
Yeah, it's
I did.
Revenants.
Okay, all right. I've been pronouncing it wrong all night. So, if you guys want to check that out and also check out the MySpace site, Michael, I'll let you go ahead and give that again.
Okay, it's on myspace.com. It's Project Ghost Find. That's Project Ghost-Find. And the email address is, oh boy, I lost it there for a second. ProGhostFindAdmin, the number 1, @gmail.com.
Awesome. All right, guys, you can call in. I know you're out there listening to us. Check it out. Give us a call, 877-SCARE-YOU2. That's 877-722-7382, or locally at 336-996-1596. And Michael will answer any of the questions that you have. I haven't been in the chat room tonight. Maybe I should go make my appearance known.
That is so cool. Scare you too.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's out there typing YOU instead of the letter U. They're
like,
trying to figure it out.
We're not in England, people.
That's
we don't want to have like a 15
It's like the band U2, Scare U2, Scare Bono and the Boys.
Apparently they want to scare the band U2.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were talking on the break when I was out smoking, so I don't know if you talked about some other interesting things.
I was
that
just
missed
the
out.
only reason why I didn't bring it up on air because it's close to where I live, and maybe I don't want you don't want a whole bunch of people flooding down that place.
Ah, gotcha. Well, let me ask you a question about have you did anything on Old Salem or had any experiences there?
I have been down there several times. I've never really experienced anything creepy there myself. My friend Amy's mother-in-law used to work there.
Okay.
And they had some things happen down there that they've talked about a little bit. Nothing major, just noises, cold spot, things like that. But I do have the story of the Little Red Man in my second book, which now tentatively is called Tar Heel Terrors.
Okay.
And the story of the Little Red Man is in there, and there have been sort of hints that maybe the Little Red Man is back.
Ooh.
And he supposedly he was laid to rest long, long ago by an itinerant minister, but there are hints that maybe he's either back or just hid out until people were receptive to him again.
Now,
he's quiet and he's not a very large fella. He may have just kind of hid out in the back room for a while.
Well, Trent and I were at Old Salem years ago, late at night, probably around midnight, and this has probably been 10 years ago, maybe less than that, maybe 8 years ago. But we saw.
And we weren't looking for anything, mind you. We're just kind of like,
we're hanging around.
Had no money, and it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, but so we were out there, and we were walking by one of the houses that isn't lived in. And at the very top story of it, we saw this flickering light, almost like a candle. And
or lantern.
Yeah,
or
and
lamp.
no one's going to leave something like that up, and because it wasn't in a window, it was actually looked like it was emanating from the floor.
Oh wow!
And it was just some creepy stuff.
And it's we just stared at it for a long time. There was nobody in that house, and it just flickered like it was like somebody was sitting there hanging out. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, that's fairly standard fare for hauntings. Hollywood makes these makes it look like people over causing this big, scary thing pops out at them. That's normally not what happens. Even on a ghost hunt, the full body apparition is like the holy grail. Every ghost hunter wants to see this, but so few ever do.
Yeah.
And I have never seen a full body apparition myself, but. Normally, it's mundane stuff like footsteps, doors opening and closing, strange lights like that.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that the full-bodied apparition isn't more common?
I think it takes a lot of energy for something like that to manifest. And particularly in an old house, if there's no power to it, there's not a whole lot of real energy there. I mean, of course, supposedly they can draw energy from batteries. So if you have a camera and all of a sudden it's got brand new batteries, all of a sudden the batteries go dead, there could be a natural explanation, or there could be something drawing energy off of that. They'll draw energy off of people. More malignant type thing, spirits, from what people say, and quote experts unquote on the subject say, will draw on people's fear also, and fear will make them stronger.
Well, there's always that old photo that we see of the lady on the stairs. I can't remember what the photo is called.
The brown lady?
That's it.
In England?
Lady.
Yeah, and I don't know.
That was creepy.
It is a creepy photo, and I guess it's never really been proven to be a hoax or anything like that.
Now, that is one of the very few that no one has ever been able to explain.
Now, who took that photo, do you know?
If you'll give me 1 second here, the book. I have
Okay.
a book right here that has that photograph in it.
That photo, to this day, gives me chills. Even talking about it gives me chills.
It is very creepy. The book that I have is called Ghosts Caught on Film. And let's see if the brown lady, I know the picture's in here. I'll flip through it. If you have another question, I'll try to find it.
We're gonna try to find this on the internet while we're talking to you, too, a photo of the brown lady.
But that is one of the most famous ghost photographs that they have ever come up with, and like I said, no one has ever debunked that one. There are pictures that people show that have been debunked and proven to be fakes, but that is one that is hard to explain. I have never caught anything that blatant on film. I've caught orbs and things like that, strange lighting effects, but I'd like to catch a full-fledged apparition on film. That would be spectacular.
Yeah.
Well, with Photoshop out today, I mean, who would believe you?
Unfortunately, that is one of the problems. Anybody can Photoshop something.
Because a lot of people don't believe it. I'll tell you the truth: people don't believe things like this unless they have something happen to them.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'll question, but I'll never question a person's sincerity, because it's so many people think people are crazy if they see or hear things, and it's not as much taboo as it used to be.
Right.
You cannot find that brown lady anywhere.
It's okay.
It's in this book.
We were looking at. There's a few pictures here in different places on the internet. If you go to Google and just type in brown lady, and hit the images button, you'll
I know
find
that
it.
it's in England.
Yeah, I can't remember what the building is, but it is in Britain somewhere. And there's what is that, Scott?
I'm sorry.
What was that?
What was what?
Thing with sunglasses on?
You don't want to know.
It was a dog's behind.
Yeah, I clicked on see full size image.
Okay, Scott. What does the brown lady have to do?
I don't know.
With the dog's behind wearing sunglasses.
It looks a little like Rich Little, actually.
What kind of trampy?
It's got glasses on its tail.
Okay,
it's a
Scott.
Pug tail.
It's got nothing to do with ghosts whatsoever.
I
see what you're, Scott. I see what you're doing.
It's
really,
a bunk link. Yeah,
you're just sitting there.
Yeah, it is a bunk.
It's not his fault.
You're just sitting there typing up crazy things.
Here we go. This picture, apparently, is the brown lady of Raynham, and it was taken in 1936 by two photographers for Country Life magazine.
Yep.
Let's see here. Supposedly the ghost of Lady Townsend, who was imprisoned in the hall by her husband. Skeptics argue this image was created by superimposing two pictures on top of the other.
I don't know about
At that time, photography has come a long way. You can fake anything. In fact, if you go on my site there, you can see some staged ghost photographs that we've made.
That's cool.
Using Photoshop, but that one, I don't think that's fake. I think that's a real photograph. I'd be disappointed to find out that it was fake.
I think I would too.
But
Yeah.
like I said, I have caught orbs and strange lighting effects and things like that. In fact, here in East Bend, the old J.G. Huff house. J.G. Huff was a businessman in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and he built this house in 1893, completed in 1893. In 1895, his small son, William, not yet 5 years old, accidentally was shot in the house. picked up his daddy's revolver and shot himself, and there was nothing they could do. But people claimed to have seen his ghost in there. But when the house was empty a couple of summers ago, my uncle was taking care of the house. His name's William Spillman. He was taking care of the house. And we went in there, and I was taking pictures in there. And I just kind of sort of made a joke. I said, "Little William, you know you won't come out here and pose for a picture for me." And I took 3 pictures. Well, the first picture, there's nothing. The last picture, there's nothing. But in the middle picture that I took in the dining room there, that series of 3, there's this blatant, humongous, glowing orb, dead center of the room. And it's not some dust particle, because if it were that, there would have been lots more of them. And it has its own glow, and it's got a purple aura around it. And I looked at that, and I showed it to my uncle, and I said, "You know, I think maybe little William did come out and pose for me."
In his own way, maybe.
But you know, a lot of people question orbs. You know, a lot of people dismiss them. The ghost hunters on Sci-Fi Channel, they dismiss them.
Yeah, we're actually pretty good friends with Jason and Grant.
Completely.
Well, I don't necessarily dismiss them, but I think they have something to do with the energy that ghosts use to manifest.
Yeah.
There's a different. Yeah, you can catch a dust or a bug or a water particle, and it'll make an orb too. But I think genuine orbs, they're just different. I can look and tell you, like, yeah, this is a bug or this is dust. A genuine orb is just different. It has a glow of its own. If it's partially hidden behind something, I mean, how do you explain that?
Oh yeah, I agree.
But orbs also will show up at places that have nothing to do with being haunted. But in almost every place I've ever found that is genuinely haunted, there are orbs there. And I think it's like they said, they're energy, and I think these things draw on them to manifest.
Maybe so. I mean, the orb debate is still pretty active and heated, and I don't know what to make of it. I too don't believe it's necessarily like a real ghost necessarily.
I have a lot of respect for Brent and Jason. I don't get to see their show because I don't have cable, but I've got the DVDs of the seasons that have been released, and I have a lot of respect for what they do. I think that they catch a lot of genuine phenomena on that show.
Oh, yeah.
They came down a few weeks ago, or a month or so. I guess it's been about a month ago now.
Yeah, it's been about a month.
And
a little over a month.
We got into their show, and they were doing over at Greensboro College, and sat through that, and then we had to wait like an hour and a half for them to sign everything.
Yeah, for the
Then we all went
throngs.
out to this diner in Greensboro in the middle of nowhere and hung out for a couple hours. But
Wow.
yeah, they keep really busy.
They are, and they're really solid guys.
Yeah,
So.
we know they investigated the battleship.
Oh, yeah.
In their second season.
Mm-hmm.
And, I actually have some stories from the battleship in Tar Heel Terrors. I talked to Mr. Bradshaw, and he gave me a few tidbits of things that happened there about heavy doors that nobody can move by themselves, just being shut and things like that, lights going on and off. And he talked about a group of tourists who were coming through, and they were in a crew section of the crew quarters. And they said they were standing there talking, and all of a sudden they heard a noise. It sounded like, springs, like a bed creaking. And so they looked, and said there was a bed there, or a bunk, and said that there were naked springs on there. There was no mattress, but said there was a depression in the springs. Someone was sitting there.
Well, I'm leaving now. Thank you very much.
And they said they left. They went down to the gift shop, and they were telling him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Bradshaw said shortly after that there was another group came through, and they were talking about, they were in the crew quarters there, and said that they heard a noise, and they looked over, and they saw these springs actually lift up like somebody had gotten up. And, of course, they got out of there, too, and they came to the gift shop and told him about it. And he said all he could think was, my God. But he actually, I don't know if he still does, he may have retired now, but at the time he actually lived on the ship. And he had several things happen to him.
Oh
wow!
You never think about it, but an old battleship like that could be a pretty, just by nature, a pretty creepy place. All these narrow corners and turns, and you don't really know where you're going. Easy to get lost in there, and lots of noises because it's on the water. You know what I'm saying? And it's an old ship, and just by the fact that it's moving on the water, you can just hear weird noises anyway. Sure. And it's a place that can really get inside your head. And then, of course, the stories that they're, actually stuff going on top of it all.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it for a interesting trip.
No, what's been the scariest place that you've been to?
The scariest place that I've been to.
Yeah. Or what you would consider the most haunted as far as...
Well, I can tell you where the scariest thing that I ever saw was.
Okay.
And that was at Appalachian State University when I attended college there in the late 80s, early 90s. I lived in East Hall, which on what was called then the International Hall. They housed an American student with each foreign exchange student. Well, the room across the hall from us was supposed to be haunted. And there was an Australian guy and an American guy in there. Well, they kept seeing a girl in the room with them. She didn't scare them. You know, they'd just wake up and they kind of joked around about it that she was their pet ghost. Well, we were in there one night, and the sink faucet turned on, and I looked over there, and it wasn't drip, drip, drip. It was, and Mike, the American boy, he got up to go turn it off, and it just shut off.
Huh.
But that was nothing. The Australian guy moved out, and Mike stayed in there by himself. He wasn't afraid, but he let some people come in there, and they played around with a Ouija board.
Oh, okay.
All kinds of things, you know. Well, he didn't see the girl anymore, but after that, he would wake up in the middle of the night and see a man standing there with red eyes. And
I think it's time to move.
well, he stayed in there, but one night drove him out of there for a couple of weeks. So they had some people come in and kind of calm things down there. But one night, now this is the scariest thing I ever saw. We were a big community there. We would have our doors open. Well, my door was open. My roommate and I were sitting there talking, and we started hearing these screams, these terrible screams. And you know, Mike was in there by himself, and he had his door shut because he was in the bed. Well, the screams were coming from that room, and we went over. We were banging on that door. The whole hall woke up. And we're trying to get in there, and finally the RA came and went in there, and Mike was sitting up in his bed in a cold sweat, white as a sheet. There was nobody else in this room. There were screens on the windows, so nobody could have gotten out the window. And Mike was sitting there, and we finally got him calmed down, and he was talking to us. And he told us that he had had a dream that man was in there again. And the man turned into something just awful. He couldn't describe it. And said it started biting him all over. And this is the gospel truth. Dead center of Mike's back, right in the middle between the shoulder blades, there were teeth marks, like something had bitten him.
Ooh.
Oh,
and
my God.
There was nothing in there. There was nothing that could have made those marks on his bed. There was nothing anywhere I could find to have made those marks. And there's no way he bit himself because he'd have to take his head off and hold it behind to do that. And that was scary. And he left the room after that. That night he left, and he stayed gone for a couple of weeks. He was sleeping our floor. He was sleeping some of the neighbors' floors there. But he wouldn't go back in that room. They finally got someone to come in from his church, and they blessed the room, and he went back in there, and after that, things were peaceful. He saw the girl again. He never saw that man again. But that was scary. I don't know. I guess you could make the argument that was psychosomatic. That you know, like stigmata. People have stigmata sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
you could make that argument, but he was terrified, and that just gave me the creeps. It still gives me the creeps all over. I'm sitting here right now.
But once again, don't mess with the Ouija boards, people.
Yeah, bad stuff. Bad stuff.
We're not talking about a Parker Brothers toy either here. The one that they brought in that room was something that somebody had made. And it was old, and it was, those Parker Brothers toys, people might can still get creeped out with those, but this was not
the real deal, huh?
Mass-produced thing.
Yeah, that's
But East Hall has a reputation, or had a reputation, as being the most haunted building on campus anyway.
Yeah.
And then that happened. And I didn't include that in my book because that was a deeply personal experience for him. Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up on the show since it's going nationwide. But,
oh, come on.
But that was many, many years ago now. But East Hall has a reputation. There are all kinds of stories about East Hall, girls and guys too. Just about every floor of the dormitory has a ghost story to it. And so it can be a creepy place at night. The housekeepers used to get weirded out while the students were away on breaks. They would be in there cleaning, and they would hear toilets flush. There's nobody else in the building but them. And, you know, that they would get creeped out with things like that. They would hear footsteps in the hall behind them, turn around, nobody's there.
Huh.
And, you know, they had several things like that happen. Again, that's mundane, footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doors shutting, lights.
Pretty common fare of
And,
the...
yeah, it's a lot of people say, you know, I'm afraid of ghosts, and you know, I don't think there's anything really to be afraid of as far as a ghost is concerned. You know, if something tries to hurt you, I feel it's something other than a ghost.
Yeah,
but,
it's very possible.
But it's, you know, people think ghost hunting is so exciting and everything. I'll tell you the truth, most of the time, nothing happens.
Yeah, you're just sitting out there
all night and not even hear the first noise. And there's a very famous ghost hunter. His name's Lloyd Auerbach. He once said that...
We've had him on the show before.
Yep.
He said that the safest place for someone who is afraid of ghosts to be is at the side of a ghost hunter. Because so rarely does something happen.
Yeah, that's true.
No joke.
But when something does happen, there's some excitement.
Yeah. And I think that's what people kind of thrive on when they do the hunts.
Yeah.
That 1% or 5%, as you say, at the time when something truly, truly unexplained happens.
Yes, and we had an incident like that on that TV show. We were at a place above Yadkinville. It's called Christine's Bridge. And it's another one of those vanishing hitchhiker stories. The bridge is no longer there, but the strut is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But we were out there, my friend Amy, my friend David, I, and the TV crew. And we were talking about the vanishing hitchhiker. Well, her story got supplanted back in the 80s when a young lady killed herself down there. She parked her car and shot herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a documented thing. It really happened. And there started being stories about her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were filming there, and we went into where she had parked her car. And it was a cold spot there. And David, he kind of stopped, and he backed up, and so did the producer with the tack crew. And they both said they kind of had a tightness of the chest when they stepped into that spot. And it was the spot where she had parked her car. And they backed out of it, and they were okay. And there was a cold spot there. And I have a compass, a magnetic compass that I take with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it supposedly can detect paranormal activity if you have a compass. Works like an EMF detector, detects magnetic fields. You know how a compass will point to magnetic north.
Right.
Well, we opened the compass up out there, and that compass, instead of pointing to magnetic north, pointed west towards where the bridge used to stand.
Ooh,
and we caught that on film too. And it was we looked around just to be sure, and it was definitely pointed west. Something drew it that way. I don't know if maybe there was some sort of magnetic deposit, mineral deposit, magnetic field or what over there, but it was just, I thought it was eerie that it just went straight to where that bridge is.
That's really strange. Well, I guess it's time for the break, actually. Let's go and talk about we can talk about that after the break.
Okay, we're coming up on our last break, Michael, so hang with us here. If you guys want to call in, I don't know why you're just sitting around tonight.
Yeah, why are you?
What's up?
Yeah.
Is our phone lines dead?
That's a question.
I'm
I know.
Have you tried calling it? I'm wondering now. It's working? Okay.
Man, where are you people? I mean, what is it? What's Monday night at...
Yeah, it's true.
No. Football? Are they doing football now?
There is Monday night football.
It's called TiVo, people.
You got to go.
This is live.
Call.
That's right.
There's a late game, too, for you guys.
And once
Comes on
again,
after our show.
as I say,
There we
it's
go.
called TiVo, Chuck. Or VCR. Recorded. This is live. We're talking to Michael Renegar. By golly.
877-SCARE-YOU-TOO. We'll be back in a minute.
And this is World Unexplained. This portion of World Unexplained is brought to you by the energy drink that I'm drinking in this nice, incredibly warm room out of gloomy late November day.
Cold November rain.
Yeah, it really is, Scott. And you can actually do that without being completely cheesy.
Yeah, I know.
But no, you're still completely
That
cheesy.
ghost behind you there.
Do what?
I said, watch out for that ghost behind you there. It might want some energy drink.
I better drink it up. Okay.
So you were speaking about Louisville.
Wait a minute. Let's get the numbers one more time.
Yeah.
You guys, you lamos
Last
who don't
chance to call. Yeah.
1-877-722-7382. That's 1-877-SCARE-YOU-TOO.
Yeah, we're not going to let you call anymore.
Dee's is
just cutting it off.
No,
after this.
no, you can't call.
Dee's going to hang up on you.
Locally, no, he's not. Locally, 336-996-1596. Somebody might actually believe that, Scott. So,
well.
you know, that might, just like those people who think that it's toll free in Mexico.
Yeah, big shocker there.
Okay, gosh, we're just going on and on. Let's talk a little more about maybe some more hauntings in this area, because Kernersville technically is in Forsyth County, and we talked about Old Salem on Payne Road, which is a little bit up north in Stokes County. But what else do you have for us here in Forsyth County, Michael?
Well, I'm looking into some stories about a house on Baroth Road in Louisville that I've heard is supposed to be haunted. A lady told me about riding through there on her horse about 15 years ago and seeing a woman standing there reaching up towards a second-floor window of the house. I think it was the Baroth family house. I'm not sure about that. But when she looked back, the woman was gone. And so I'm looking into stories of that. I've heard hints that the old Jewish home out there was haunted. I'm trying to find details about that. In my first book, Roadside Revenants, I tell the story of John Goolsby, who lived, he doesn't live anymore, over in the western part of Forsyth County, close to the Donahaw Bridge in the Donahaw community. His house stands on a dirt road, and you're going to love this, called Payne Road. Not the Payne Road, but Mr. Goolsby in the late 1900s, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, shot himself in the front room of that house. But they say his spirit has never left. And people have lived in that house over the years, have heard noises. A young lady was walking by there one night in the early part of the 1900s, and she met a man who was wearing a black tuxedo, a black top hat, and had a black cloak on. He turned and walked into that house without a word. She thought it was pretty rude because she'd spoken to him, but he didn't say anything to her. So she went on down to a little store and told the people there what had happened to her and how rude the man was. And the man told her, he wasn't rude, honey, because he wasn't really there. And they told her that she had seen John Goolsby, that he had a habit of dressing like that. And, of course, she wouldn't walk back by the house for anything after that. They had to take her home in the wagon. But my Uncle William Spillman, who I told you about earlier, when he was a boy, right after World War II, his sister lived in the Goolsby house with her husband and a baby. And he was over there one night. He used to go over there to help the man who brought the mail from the train over there to Yankton County. And he would stay overnight there some. And they were upstairs getting ready for bed, and they heard a crash downstairs. He said it sounded like somebody had taken the china cabinet and just turned it over and dumped all the dishes out and shattered them. Well, his uncle told him, why don't you go down and see what that was? And he's like, yeah, right. But he got to discourage him. He went on down there, and he said there wasn't a thing down there out of place. The china cabinet was standing up. All the dishes were intact. Nothing. And he said the next morning he left, didn't say nothing. But his sister continued to live in the house there. And once she had the baby, they hired a lady to come in and take care of the house because she couldn't. She was kind of sickly after having the baby. Well, one day, the lady who they hired was in the kitchen washing the dishes. And William's sister and her husband and a guest, the baby, were all in the front room there. And the lady that was washing the dishes saw a man come in the back door. He was dressed all in black. So he walked by her, and she said, well, they're all in the front room, because she thought it was maybe the parson or another one of the neighbors. She wasn't really paying attention. But she finished up her dishes and went into the front room, and the man wasn't there. And so she said, where did the parson go? Where'd that man go? And they all looked at her. There wasn't any man. She said, he just came in the back door and came in here. And they told her the back door was locked. So she went back there, and they followed her, and sure enough, the back door was locked. Nobody had come through that door.
Oh.
And it was shortly after that my uncle's sister left from there.
Oh.
Yeah.
But that's John Goolsby's legend. It's in the Donahoe community. In my second book, Tar Heel Terrors, I tell the story of a haunting of a ranch-style house on Lehigh Court. It's a friend of mine lived there with her husband and children, and they had several of those mundane little things happen, but the children actually saw an old lady in that house. The old lady told one of the boys not to tell his parents not to build a fire in the fireplace, because the last time there had been a fire in that fireplace, it had been really bad. And so I know that's not really scary, but I don't want to give away too many details since that's in the book.
Well, that's understandable. When is the next book coming out? Right.
We're targeting next Halloween.
Oh,
okay.
awesome.
That will
It
be
generally takes a year or so to get with some publishers. Takes a book, especially small publishers who are trying to do 3 or 4 different books.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just been sent off to them, so I'm looking for Halloween next year.
Awesome.
That'll be very, very good timing for you.
Yes, and in the meantime, I'm still looking for anything else in Forsyth County. I'm planning my third book. The third book will encompass the entire South.
Wow.
So I'm looking for stories from anywhere in the former Confederacy.
That's going to be pretty ambitious.
Yeah.
A lot of road trips.
Yes,
that
it
one.
is. I'm hoping to go to the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana, which
Yep.
is supposedly the most haunted house in America.
I've heard that.
Supposedly it is. That's
And,
what people say.
I'd like to go there, and there are several places I would like to go. Are there any places that you'd like to ask me about?
Well, I kind of wonder why it seems you wanted to go western North Carolina and beyond. I mean, have you looked into the Mako Lights or the Devil's Tramping Ground or any of these old legends that we hear about?
Well, I've been to where the Devil's Tramping Ground is, and it's not like it used to be. You can go out there, you'll find beer cans, you'll find all sorts of stuff out there, but it's still a circle out there where there's nothing grows there, and supposedly it's where the devil walks around and around, planning his evil machinations,
Plotting the end of the world. Yeah.
And and who knows? Maybe he does that, And the Mako Light, a lot of people talk about the Mako Light, but the railroad tracks are no longer there.
No, it's just basically swamp.
Yeah. I don't, if I'm not mistaken, the light doesn't, if it does show up now, it doesn't show up as often as it used to.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably related to the tracks being gone.
Right.
Of course, everybody talks about the hoof prints in the stone at Bath. That's supposed to be the hoof prints of a horse that the devil caused to throw its rider there.
Right. I remember that story, and wasn't it involving a bet, and the guy was betting on Sunday, and he was really, he said something about take me to winter or take me to hell, and the rider basically caused him to fall off his horse, and the hoof prints.
The horse threw him, and he died. He broke his neck and died, and supposedly the hoof prints are still there in the stone on that farm where that happened.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
We have. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, there are stories about Tom Dooley. Nobody realizes that song actually tells sort of a true story. The details of the song are a little fudged, of course, but nobody realizes that song, a national hit for the Kingston Trio back in the 50s, that actually happened here in North Carolina in Wilkes County.
Yeah. Actually, there's a little spot along the Parkway where they have a little placard talking about Tom Dooley.
Yes, and supposedly after he was taken down from the gallows, they took him home and they laid him out in his bedroom. Well, sometime in the middle of the night, the neck wound started to bleed and bled all over the floor. And after that, no one wanted to sleep in that room of that cabin because they didn't want to sleep in Tom Dooley's blood.
Yeah, understandable.
And there's a story that Tom Dooley's lover, Ann Melton, everyone thinks that they killed Laura Foster together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a story that the night that Ann Melton was out riding and wrecked her wagon, that she saw Laura Foster's ghost standing in the road, and that's the reason she wrecked. And, of course, everybody knows that when Ann Melton died, the stories are that she was screaming and that people saw black cats come out from under her bed and they could smell meat frying. Then the story was they smelled the meat frying in hell where she was going. But, there's a lot of evidence now that Tom Dooley didn't even have anything to do with Laura Foster's death. But there are all sorts of wonderful, wonderful legends in North Carolina. It's so rich with folklore. And,
that's true.
And we have lots of real hauntings, too.
And here in the last 10 minutes, a long-waited caller has finally decided to call. And it is Ron from Raleigh. Ron, how you doing?
Hey, Ron, what's up? What's going on, buddy?
God bless you guys.
God bless you, too.
Hey, and hello to Scottsdale and everybody else out there in the world. Mr. and Miss America and all the ships at sea, I guess. I think I'm really loving the show. I like all the ghost stories. I was just looking around because I remember reading when I was very, very young a ghost story book, like I'm talking about middle school, right? And I thought the scariest one was the story about the hounds that chase people, so I looked it up tonight. It was the Hound of Goshen. Has this hound been sighted recently? And if so, can you tell us a story about it? Or if you've got a really good ghost story about North Carolina that you can just tell, can you tell a ghost story?
Okay, well, thanks, Ron. We're going to take you off here. We've got a real bad hum. Thanks for calling.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I've heard of the Hound of Goshen. It's one of Nancy Roberts' stories, I do believe.
Okay.
And there's, interestingly enough, I don't know a lot about that one. I remember reading that, but there is another ghost dog that I can tell you about. In the Valley Crucis community, close to Boone, they tell the story of a ghost hound that people see there. No one knows where it comes from, tongue-tied, who owned it, or when it died or anything, but it's supposedly a humongous dog the size of a calf. It's black and has black and brown in its face. And one of the biggest details about this dog is there are no eyes in its sockets.
Oh, that's just
that's creepy.
That's a cuddly little animal right there.
But my friend Melanie, who lives in Asheville now, went to Appalachian with me. She heard stories about a haunted church out at Valley Crucis, which I covered that. It's the very first chapter of my first book. But she drove out there by herself one night. She borrowed her boyfriend's car. She was all stubborn. She was going to go out there and check out the ghost story.
Oh, that's...
Well, it was a dark and foggy night, and the closer she got, the more timid she was. What am I doing out here?
Yeah, that's...
Ding, ding, ding.
That's your self-preservation kicking in.
She got to the road that goes out to the old St. John's Episcopal Church, and she decided she wasn't going to go out there, so she turned around and started back. Well, as she got a little ways up the road, close to the bridge over the new river there, or maybe it's the Watauga River. Yes, the Watauga River. She said she looked out to her left, and there, right beside her, pacing her at 35 miles an hour, was this monster of a dog. And she said that it turned to look at her, and there were no eyeballs in the sockets. And she said she stomped the gas, which is a dangerous thing on that road. It's really curvy. But she said that dog kept up with her and finally leapt towards the car, and she closed her eyes and slammed on the brakes, but nothing happened. She said it was like the dog just jumped through the car.
Oh, my gosh.
And was gone.
That's good.
Yeah,
I'd like to have gotten that on videotape, right?
Yeah.
That would have been great. But to corroborate her story a little bit, another guy that I knew, he didn't know Melanie. This was a couple of years before. He and some friends had been to Banner Elk to visit some people at Lisa McRae. Well, they were coming back down 194, and in the last big curve above the Holy Cross Church, which is a mission, an Anglican mission up there, they were coming around that curve, and they saw this great, big, huge black dog standing there, and he said that as their headlights hit this dog, the light should have been reflected in its eyes, but they weren't because there weren't any eyes.
Ooh.
And he said that they slammed on the brakes, and they were headed right for the edge. He said when they finally stopped, they were just a couple of feet from going over the edge of the cliff. And
It's almost as though
big drop-off.
Almost as though the creature is trying to get people to crash their cars and die.
Yes. But he said that he had a view up close and personal of that dog. He said that he saw the hood of the car go through the dog, like it wasn't even there. He said before he closed his eyes, he thought he was going to die. The dog's face was right there. He said that it had huge teeth, was slobbering like a Great Dane or something. But he said it was like it was looking at him, but there were no eyes in the socket.
Oh my gosh!
Now this is a long time before Melanie ever told her story. He was gone before she ever got there.
Unfortunately, it's about that time, Michael. We are running out of time, and
we really appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah, please come back. It's always we've been wanting to do a show like this for quite some time here at Wotu.
Or just let me know. And if you guys are ever interested in going out on an investigation with me, just keep in touch.
That's true.
Like when you send me the information, everything, send me your phone numbers, addresses, everything, and if I have something coming up, I'll be sure to let you know.
That'd be a lot of fun. Of course, I don't think you get Scott out there.
Oh man, I'll come out.
Scott's little,
I'm timid.
Yeah. So last final word we'll give to you before we let you go.
Watch out, everybody, but remember, a real ghost can't hurt you. If it tries to hurt you, it's something else. Get some help.
All right.
Well,
thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good night. We appreciate it.
All right, you too.
All right.
And that was Michael Renegar, author of Roadside Revenants.
Not Roadside Revenants.
Yeah, well, I kept getting my N's and my V's mixed up. That's okay.
For you people locally, he's going to be here December 15th at the Walden Books in Haynes Mall, 4 p.m. And check it out. Buy a copy of his book, Roadside Revenants. And, wow.
Yeah.
That last story was a doozy, actually.
A little dog with no eye action going on.
Yeah, I'll be thinking about while I'm driving through,
I know you will.
the backwoods of, Davie County on my way home.
Fun for you. I
get to think about a eyeless giant dog. Of course, there's no real dangerous cliffs or anything I'm going to crash into, but still.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Sometimes I have problems with that, like after talking about ghost stories and then I'm driving home alone in the dark. Yeah. It's pretty, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can get to you.
Creepy.
It can get to you unless you, crank up some Opeth. That's what I'm listening to right now.
Did y'all hear that
Chuck.
The lead singer from Quiet Riot, I think it was the lead singer, died. I was hearing that on the radio today.
Really?
Not actually.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said that he's like 52 or something. They found him dead in his home.
Big news I heard today actually was the Redskins strong safety Sean Taylor, about 2 o'clock in the morning last night. I guess a robbery or something. He was shot twice. One's in the femoral artery, and I guess he's not responsive. Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
But he's had a little trouble in the past. Apparently, he wasn't able to have firearms, and that's why apparently he answered the door at 2 a.m. with a machete.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he was on probation.
Well, there you go.
Wow. Unbelievable. So, I don't know. So, now we know about Payne Road, Scott. Yeah. And the thing is about a lot of these places is that you get them from hearsay. You get the word of mouth. Somebody says something. Somebody says another thing. Are you really sure? It's like that game telephone when you're in elementary school. Are you really, really sure that what you're hearing is really legit? And is that road really legit or that place really legit? Oh, I saw something scary there. Well, your mind really works and plays a great number of tricks on you anytime you're in some country road late at night, and whether you're doing anything or not, it can get to you.
I think it's cool because I remember driving down that road as a teenager, and I actually found the right road. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So,
and that road was pretty creepy because I was in that car with you.
Yeah. You were there with me before as well.
But
creepy stuff.
I don't know, and it's kind of cool. It's local color. Anybody who's local.
That's right.
Let them know. Let us know.
Shout, let it all out.
These are the things that we can do without.
Tears for Fears?
It was Tears for Fears.
I don't know. I'm in a lethargic state of.
It's the heat room.
It is.
It's the mud
really
room for the
here and,
weapons testing.
Yeah.
In Berlin. My name is Dita.
Yeah, well, anyway, we're coming up on the last 30 here, so Dirty 30.
Let's not crash this show. It's been pretty good, Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
keep it together, man.
This is Jay Scott, your only JDDJ on the OmniSound, KarmaCast, and all the other radio networks out there saying we'll see you next week with more choice guests.
Okay. This is Trent Lackey. We're coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where we talk about big things. Chuck.
We out!